What was the one called, Jim? I think everything was highlighted, right? There was the attachment 1, 2, and then one called agreement.
Attachment 1, there were 2 parts to it, and attachment 2.
Let me take a look. Yeah, it's called agreement highlight.
I've got it here, that is just.
Well, the highlighted one would be easier, so that way they can
So they
review
can
it.
see it.
These are the ones that we've got on the burn
Oh.
complaints, so you can see them by how many we've had. And
I was gonna say, one Facebook message is not gonna change my view on it, but I feel like Jason's gonna be able to do a survey after this. Logs.
But you know what, there's a difference between
There's-
having a bonfire and having burning.
Well, garbage is illegal, so
Yeah.
I'm all for getting on the garbage.
CFO just said, yes, let's connect tomorrow once we can digest what you sent over.
That's not necessarily surprising.
Yeah, I know. But
Yes.
I thought you worded it really well on how you said,
This letter kind of summarizes the changes that I've been making today to reflect the comments of, particularly the comments of Mike Jenin about that utility tax issue.
yeah.
Okay, and there's a copy attached to that. This should be a clean copy with the
Okay.
attachments.
No, I thought your explanation of them was pretty good, that if they're not happy with it, it's gonna take an extra couple more meetings to get their stuff approved.
What's that gonna cost them though, grand scheme of
The
things?
time is the big thing they're concerned about.
Because of the power rate, or
What's that?
because of the power rate, or?
You talking about the big reason that we just changed? The big thing was they wanted, oh, we should probably wait till the meeting, Jim, if you wanna explain that. Every time you try to explain the
fine.
enterprise zone thing to me, I go, whoa. Thank you. What's that?
Hi.
Great, how are you?
Yeah.
Great.
Here's the
What?
agreement, the only thing that got changed,
I
and this is
wanna-
the biggest issue.
I
is
haven't,
number
let's
13.
turn the volume up if we can. We gotta complain about
That's
that,
the biggest thing they're gonna talk
Okay,
about.
but that's an option.
I don't know if it's not.
It protects us from a possibility of one
Sure,
point
I
nine
don't know,
million.
but I'll try.
I'm gonna look it up.
Just
Jason,
right
how
here.
many turn the volume up on the whatever?
Did it get
Don't
touched,
play.
did it get modified?
Not
No,
internet.
people said they still can't hear it, so
Oh, I don't-
I say we max it out and
I
blow
don't
out
know
their
how you
speakers.
turn the volume up.
That's where
I
I'm
don't
at.
know.
I don't know about everyone else.
I've had a couple people reach out to me and said they can't hear me,
Yeah. Still,
so
this was supposed to be the life-changing.
I'm gonna be,
Whatever.
full disclosure, I didn't have it turned on last time.
Oh. Well,
Until
there
the
you
very
go.
end of the meeting, when I realized it wasn't on.
Yeah, you gotta kinda hit that, you gotta hit that.
Are people
that
still not
green
able to hear me? I don't think we were talking in the mics
What, are we
before.
gonna look at the comments now?
I don't know. Well, if somebody wants to call in.
Is Jim coming? Oh, we're early anyway, we got a couple.
I'm sure.
Someone just called in and said that they couldn't hear us, but we really weren't directly talking in a mic since we didn't start. If that's still the case, let me know.
Jim?
He is.
Is okay?
Hope he's all right.
Okay, is he the next in Oglesby? Okay, I'll call Chloe right now. Alright, bye.
I have a little paper there, these are the burn complaints that we've gotten.
Amy, I'm gonna give you this one,
Yeah.
because this is my clean copy.
Okay.
Okay? Assuming that everything everything's okay with GTI, that's what we would attach to, you know, that's what we'll attach to the ordinance if we place it on file tonight. And what would be attached to the ordinance if we adopt it next Monday, okay?
Okay.
Is he okay?
He's okay. Somebody blew a stoplight or something, hit the back of his work truck, so he will get here when he gets here.
Okay.
Might be a little
Was it in Oglesby or was it
May Road improvement.
Well, I'm glad he's okay. That's the most
Yeah,
important part.
he's okay. I think he's in the big truck, so I think everything's okay. Yeah, he's in like the box truck, I think, so.
Depending on how hard he was hit though, he
Well,
could
he
still
said,
be, you know.
she sped up, she's trying to get through the intersection before the guy blew the stoplight.
Mm.
Okay.
You know, I always, well, if we wanna get started. Call the Oglesby special meeting to order.
Augubright.
Aye.
Cullinan. Curran.
Aye.
Bianski.
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comments on agenda items only. Drew?
Drew Merriman. On number 10, the food truck ordinance, just about everywhere that my mom and dad would go with their elephant ear stand, they had to have a minimum of $1 million insurance. And if you don't believe me, ask any of the carnival people, they'll tell you that. Ask anybody that's in concessions and they'll tell you that. And then number 18. Number 18, I've been coming for years and years. And I think it's 2020. I think it's time for Oglesby to have a burn ban. And with the last chief, I've had him, I had him, you know, he wouldn't come out. I'd ask him to come out and he wouldn't come out. But I could show you just about everyone in town that are not within 20 feet. There are a lot less. I can show you some that are within 5 to 6 feet. And you can't be any kind of structure, you cannot burn. It's got to be at least 20 feet away. But let's just think of the health of people, because that's like where our house is. We're on the west side of the street. So anybody burning to the west of us, you know, this time of the year, you'd like to have the windows open, and you can't because people are burning. And everything that we put out in our leaf bags, they take it. So let's end it. Let's put a burn ban in.
Thank you. You know, Dom, maybe for the record, we just want to put in the minutes that Commissioner Cullen is not here because he was in an automobile, just so we got it.
Okay.
And it isn't like he just didn't, you know, show up
So Commissioner Cullinan will be late tonight because he was in an auto accident before the meeting.
on his way.
And
He's
hopefully he's here soon, but he is on his way after they figure out what's going on with the accident.
Andy's okay.
He is definitely okay. I just talked to him. So let's put that out there too.
Number 5, place on file 1131-100520, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an agreement for the purchase of electricity from the City of Oglesby by GTI LLC.
So, where to begin on this? I'm sure our attorney will probably talk for a bit on it, but just to give you kind of a background, we were approached by GTI probably well over a month ago to discuss about expansion and them getting a special rate and incentives and things like that. We did meet face-to-face with quite a bit of them back in, oh my goodness, beginning of September, beginning of the month. So a lot of things have occurred since then. There's been a lot of back and forth. There's been a lot of discussions, a lot of negotiations. And it took a while to come to an agreement. And I think we had a relatively good agreement early last week, but then there was a lot of technical things that had to go in there. So I would like to thank the city attorney. The city attorney, we kind of, I won't say we asked him for an impossible task, but we asked him for a very improbable task. I think we gave him everything either Tuesday night or Wednesday morning and said, hey, can you put together this massive agreement with provisions and attachments and everything within 24 hours? And sure enough, believe it or not, he came through. So it was very, on Friday, I was able to share some stuff with GTI to make sure they were good with the agreement. And then that same rough draft we shared with the rest of the commissioners, and they came back on a couple concern items and some errors that we were able to fix. We were able to fix nearly all of those items, and there's some items that we weren't able to fix, and another we had to put in provision. So and it just got finished probably not even an hour ago. So the highlighted stuff that the commissioners see right there are the things that got modified. And I don't know if we want to talk about them in details or if you got some questions about them. Some of them are kind of self-explanatory. Number 13 is the big ticket item, and then the rest were all kind of minor things. Now, keep in mind, I did send it to GTI, but they have not had a chance to have their lawyers and everybody review it. Jim actually put a great letter together that kind of explained a little bit that about why the changes were made, and also put in there that if they, because this is what we're voting on to put on file tonight, and if they don't necessarily agree with it, and we have to modify it again, it'll delay their process to kind of get it approved. I don't know if you want me to go into any of the details.
I can maybe hit the, kind of the high points.
Just do the highlights.
Yeah. There were a number of minor changes to the thing. Most of them involved typographical changes. There were what I would refer to as 3 major requests made by GTI in comment to the agreement that I prepared. The first request was the agreement provided that GTI was going to be able to meet the load and usage requirements for the special B7 incentive rate by no later than June 1st, 2021. GTI came back and said, well, we think we're going to be able to do that, but could we have a couple extra months? I spoke to Verbal Blakey, who's the city's electrical engineering consultant, and Verbal said, Jim, that's got to be approved by the IMEA. So I called Mike Jenin late this afternoon. I called him earlier in the morning on another matter. I called him late this afternoon about this matter. And Mike Jenin said, that's going to probably have to be approved by, the head, the president of the IMEA, and maybe even by the board. He said, I can't give you an answer. And he also pointed out to me that during the initial discussions with GTI said that they would be up and running by April 1st, so they already pushed it back to June 1st. So in the letter I sent to Commissioner Kern probably a little over an hour ago, or a little under an hour ago, that he sent on to GTI, I said, we can't answer that, so I'm not making the change that you're asking for. So I'm leaving it the way it is. The second issue requested by GTI was a clarification on how GTI would reimburse the City of Oglesby for capital costs incurred by the City of Oglesby pursuant to the Phase 1 capital cost recovery provisions. We basically have 3 capital costs that GTI is reimbursing the city for. And they're reimbursing the city because this special rate that we're giving them is something that leaves, a much, much, much smaller profit margin for the city. So on Phase 2, which is the largest phase, within 10 days of the execution of the agreement, they're going to write a check to the City of Oglesby for those costs. And those costs total, what,
$677,000.
$677,000. There are additional Phase 1 costs, which total I got it here.
$254,000.
$254,000. And what we have agreed to with them is that until they qualify for the B7 rate, they're going to be paying for electricity at the B6 rate. And we will take you gotta put this in decimals, 0.00525 cents per kilowatt hour. And we will apply that, because they're gonna be paying the higher rate at that time, towards this $254,000 figure. When they hit the B7 rate, which we're assuming will be, in this agreement, June 1st or earlier, in addition to paying the B7 rate, they will continue to pay the city a premium of 0.00525 cents per kilowatt hour until those two figures added together total the $254,000. Jason, if they use the power they're estimating, how long will it take them to repay that? Do you know?
If they go up to where they're using at least 3.2 megawatts every month, it'll take under 2 years, about a year and a half before they'll pay that $256,000 off by that extra half penny.
And then once they've repaid that, then that comes off, and then they're just on a B7 rate. They asked for some clarification because I put in there that in the agreement, it provides they're gonna get the B7 rate provided they have the necessary load to qualify for the B7 rate. From everything they told us, that shouldn't be a problem. They should be able to qualify. But Verbal recommended that we put something in there, if they have some month where they don't qualify,
They go up.
they're gonna be paying on the B6 rate. So what I put in there was that once they get to the B7 rate, if they fall back onto the B6 rate, we still add that 0.00525 cents per kilowatt hour on top of the B6 rate. So until they hit it, we just give them a credit, but we don't add any additional charge to their bill. After they hit it, we're gonna add that additional charge to their bill, whether they're at the B7 rate or the B6 rate. So they asked for some clarification. I think they might have even wanted some changes to that, and I clarified it, but I said that was the agreement that I understood. The third request that GTI had involved, we believe there's gonna be some further expansion, and we refer to that as the Phase 3 expansion, which is, these Phase 1, 2, and 3 are all attached to the agreement and spelled out. But the estimate of the Phase 3, the engineer's estimate right now for Phase 3 is, I gotta make sure I got this, $237,274. So the agreement provides that once we have made those improvements, they have to reimburse the city for those improvements within, I believe it says 60 days.
60 days once we complete them.
Once we
Yes.
complete them. They came back and said, well, why don't we just pay you based upon the estimate, upon the engineer's estimate? And our response to that was, in the case of Phase 1, the actual costs were less than the engineer's estimate, so we thought that's only fair. That's all it cost us, that's all we're asking you to reimburse us. But we said that it's an estimate, there could be, they said, well, what if there's cost overruns? And our response to that was, if there's cost overruns, too bad. We're not gonna willy-nilly spend their money, but whatever our actual costs are is what they should reimburse us. They wanted to just reimburse us based upon the engineer's estimate, and we said, in my In the letter I sent to Jason, which he sent on to them, basically said no.
And we explained that a little
So-
bit further, so,
If it's less, but if it's more, we're gonna take the hit, but if it's
No,
less,
no,
we're gonna
just
give
the
them a
opposite.
deal?
They're gonna,
Oh,
they're gonna
okay.
reimburse us whatever the costs are. If
Okay.
it's less, they
Yeah.
benefit. If it's more, they don't. But that's
Okay,
what we did
okay.
with
So-
phase one, and it only seemed fair to do that with phase
No, I'm
three.
understanding what we're saying now.
so yeah, the reason I had the change in there is because there's a difference. Phase one and phase two, since they're complete, we know what those costs were. The example actually was phase two, the engineering estimate was $847,000. It actually only ended up costing the city for the raw materials and the work and the administration and the overhead about $677,000. So we saved them, my God, what's the difference of that? It's like 107, it's like 170,000 we saved them. So I use that example to say, hey, what we have for phase three is only an engineering estimate right now. We could end up probably saving you more, but I want to protect both sides, both you and the city, to whatever the true costs actually are is what we get. And then I wanted to put something in there, instead of just saying phase three, that it's any additional phases, because there's been talk that they might actually be expanding even further beyond this phase three. So I wanted to make sure that there was a provision in there. And the other reason it says to approve it, the whole reason the engineering estimate comes up, is because I want them to have something that they say, okay, here's the engineering estimate, we approve that, that's what we need, then we go ahead and do it, and then we can bill them for it. I don't want to have something out there to where we put something in and they come back and say, why are you putting that in? How did you, who told you to put that in so we pay you back? That's why the whole thing's in there the way it's worded right now, that they approve the engineering estimate, we do the work, and then we true up the cost, whether they owe us a little or we owe them, or however it works, once we get the final cost at the end of the project.
So you're gonna give them itemized lists after phase three of what it costs us?
Yes, if you look
Well,
in,
what it actually says, Tom, is that they don't pay us until we give them a bill
Okay.
showing that it's installed, and
Okay.
this is what our costs are.
so if you
But the
take,
first thing we give them is an estimate, so they can say, oh, okay, we're good with that. But we bill them based upon our actual costs, and
Okay.
they have to pay within 60 days after we have it installed, and we submit them the bill, and they have to pay.
one of the
But
items
so-
in here, go ahead.
But to, what I was thinking of is, in any major project that I've been involved in, if there are runovers, we created a change order. And the change order then was signed off by both parties, so they would know that we have an additional, something additional came up, and that's gonna cost $10,000. We want you to be aware of it, so they sign off on it in advance.
We could do that. I didn't put that in. I was kind of doing this on the fly.
Yeah, this was more general and stuff like
And
that.
so are they on phase three now?
No.
No. So this could be hypothetically years before they do this?
No, right, well, if you look at the next item is the two transformers for us to purchase. The reason it's specifically after that is because I didn't want to start the expansion of where we have to pay about $90,000 worth of items if we don't know that we're going to have a guarantee. So getting this approved prior to the purchase of the transformers will guarantee that we have a way to recoup that cost.
Okay.
The third item that came up, and this was something that I didn't realize, Mike Jenin at the IMEA this morning said to me, during one of the meetings with GTI representatives, GTI asked us, are there any economic incentives that you can give to us? Well, obviously, the TIF is only good for another year there, so there really wasn't, didn't make any sense to try to put a TIF agreement together. What we suggested to them was that they could apply to the Upper Illinois River Valley Development Authority, which is referred to as URIPTA, if you put all those first letters together. And URIPTA could give them project-by-project enterprise zone status. Now, that's not the enterprise zone that we're kind of traditionally thinking about, where you don't pay any real estate taxes for a period of 10 years. It is considered an enterprise zone designation, but what it allows them to do is any material that is incorporated in the building project for their expansion and I think this applies to equipment also, they don't have to pay any sales tax on it. So that's a savings. How much depends on, where they're getting the material and what it is. When I spoke to Mike Jenin this morning, Mike Jenin said, Jim, your agreement doesn't prohibit GTI from going to EURIPTA if they meet the qualifications and asking for a waiver of utility taxes from the state. In order to meet that, they have to employ 200 people. Well, Mike, the email from EURIPTA is attached to the letter to you, but they have to employ 200 people and invest at least $5 million. The $5 million, I think they would probably hit. I really don't know.
They would hit that.
The 200 people, we don't know. But the bottom line is, Mike Jenin said, you better put something in there that says if they want to apply for a break on the state utility tax, we don't care, but they cannot get, they can't ask the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity to waive the city's utility tax. So I added a paragraph after speaking to Mike Jenin, which is paragraph 13 on the agreement. There was a paragraph 13 that I took out in the original agreement. Your paragraph 13 talked about we all want to work together to try to improve our energy or reduce our energy usage. So I put in a new paragraph 13, which says, the city acknowledges that customer has applied for enterprise zone designation pursuant to the authority vested in the Upper Illinois River Valley Development Authority Act, 70 ILCS 30-1 at Sequin West 2018. It says from the Upper Illinois River Valley Development Authority. Customer and city agree that to the extent that customer is entitled to receive exemption from municipal utility taxes pursuant to this designation and the provisions contained in the Illinois Enterprise Zone Act, and then there's a citation of that. Customer agrees that it will not make any application for exemption from any municipal utility taxes charged by the city of Oglesby. And then I also added to the definition of tax adjustment on attachment 1. It says tax adjustment is defined as any tax or charge imposed or levied by any taxing authority, including the Illinois State Public Utility Tax Act, and all applicable city municipal utility taxes shall be added to the customer's bill. So the state tax and the city tax get added. If they ask, to get the state tax taken off and DCEO gives it to them, that's okay. That doesn't, I don't think that has any material effect on the city. But if they weren't paying the city's utility tax, that could be a material impact. So that change is something new that I put in. In fairness to GTI, the changes I just described were sent to Jason. He probably got them 25 after 5 today. So GTI hasn't seen those changes. So my suggestion was that we put the ordinance on file with this agreement attached to it tonight. If it's okay with GTI, we adopt it on Monday. If it's not okay with GTI and we negotiate something that is, then what we'll have to do on Monday is place that on file and have a special meeting a week later, or depending upon what your pleasure is. I guess if we got something agreed before 5 o'clock tomorrow, you could call a special meeting for, 6 o'clock or 6:30 on Thursday, but then you'd have to, even to do it, you'd still have to you'd have to have your regular meeting next week on Monday,
Still have
and
to
then
wait.
another meeting on,
Still
so I
a
don't know,
week.
Thursday. I don't know if you want to go through all that.
Yeah.
So, but I think we ought to put this on file. If it's okay with them, we adopt it on Monday. If we have to do some further negotiating, then that's okay, but then we'll have to put a different, document on file on Monday because the ordinance that we place on file has to contain the same language as what we approve, and basically that means that that agreement has to be the same. So, we put it on file tonight. If it's okay, we adopt it on Monday, otherwise we go to Plan B, which is put it on file on Monday and either have a special meeting on, I think in the letter to everybody that I handed out, I said the 12th. I think the 12th may be Columbus Day, which may be a state holiday. And I think the Open Meetings Act says you can't have a meeting on a state holiday unless your regular meeting falls on that date. That wouldn't be our regular meeting, so we would maybe have to do it on Tuesday, the 13th. We'll figure that out if
Down the road.
down the road, if that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I explained it in the email I sent to them, that if they don't agree and we have to come up with something different, it's 2 weeks more longer because of that, at least a week. That's if we just do a special meeting even. So I know it's a crazy complicated topic. I mean, there has been an incredible amount of work. Matter of fact, I feel terrible because I think our original plan was the middle of October is when we were going to do our next working meeting to go over all these topics and stuff. But we tried to take advantage of this time because they were kind of hoping to get this going with their next phase. The part I feel terrible about is I feel like there's so much effort and stuff the city's been putting for these this GTI project stuff that we have not had a lot of time to go over in detail these other 15 topics that we kind of want to talk about and get into.
And we might want to table some, depending on how long this takes for the GTI topic.
Possibly. So, does anybody have any more questions about the GTI
I
stuff?
think one thing we should also, for the public, so they understand this, that GTI has a facility is it Rock Island or Moline, Jason?
Yeah, I don't know how much detail, I mean, I could talk about this for a while. It's Moline.
It's in Moline. And obviously, the process for growing medical cannabis and their other cannabis is very electrical expensive. It's
Energy intensive.
energy intensive,
I
yes,
got
thank
you.
you, Tom. Yes, thanks. And just coincidentally, Rock Island County is, the electrical provider there is Mid-American Energy, I believe, it's Mid-American.
You're correct.
Which is, I also believe, a Berkshire Hathaway subsidiary.
Correct.
And they have, just coincidentally, some of the lowest electrical rates anywhere in the state. Would
So-
that be correct?
So let me get, okay. So the site they have there is, so GTI has 2 licenses that they can do in the state of Illinois. One is Moline and one is Oglesby here. The one in Moline is provided by Mid-American Energy. Now, it is true that Oglesby is under the average of what cost is for electric. That doesn't mean we are the lowest, all right? Because, there's a lot of things that are even nearby that sometimes can get a little lower than us. But the thing is, where they are and how they get their power, they have different rules on the tariffs and stuff like that. Rock Island there is perhaps the lowest in the entire state of Illinois. So that's what they're comparing us to, which is very difficult and very complicated. Plus, the other thing they have is they have a different way that they do their billing with, they have on-peak and off-peak rates. They actually have 6 different rates throughout the different times of the year and the different times of the day. They initially asked us if we could look into that because, to be honest, if there's a way that we can do on-peak, off-peak in the city of Oglesby, that we can give some of that savings to them, that was what we looked into. So that's what the initial thing that we were going to look into. The problem was there is so little data they have for their current site. For the site in Oglesby, we only have data for a couple months of them producing stuff. So the problem is we started to go and look at the sister site over at Moline. We were going to try to base rates off of that. Well, that's even more complicated. One, they don't have a complete year, and on top of it, it's a sister site. It's not exact, so we're estimating. So for our engineers' estimate, they said the further we keep continuing to estimate things, the further off our estimates of what we can charge them are off. So that's why we had to abandon the idea of looking at on-peak, off-peak rates for Oglesby until perhaps in the future when they have enough data, that could be something that we could look into. So this process has gone, I cannot explain to you how much this process has gone. Mayor, I don't even know, how many phone conversations and conference calls between all these parties you think we've had in the last month?
Quite a few.
I mean, it's,
Sometimes, 6 calls in a day to go back and forth to get this. And what they're doing, here in, where we're at, in Ameren territory, we were affected dramatically more than they were over there in Mid-America. They've got a nuclear power plant. Ameren, in all honesty, has put a ton of money into their transmission system to keep up the load. Mid-America hasn't had to do that. And the difference, the toll charges for a megawatt of electricity to transport over Mid-America's lines is $3, where at Ameren it's $6. Noted to say that we're not, that puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage. Currently, under law, each one of these growing facilities, there's only one limited to each state police district. But that's today. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? I think we've done a heck of a job. Blakely from the engineering has, gone over this. The streets is a different world. The IMEA with Mike Jenna, go through this, give us our advice on how we should proceed, and I believe we should listen to the experts.
I have to give a huge thanks to BHMG and the IMEA for working with us on this to be able to come up with something. Because when I initially heard what they're able to do and what they're able to get out in Mid-America, I'm thinking, when I first heard this, I'm like, I don't know how we can possibly even compete with this. But working with them to find out the different incentives that were available and stuff like that, we were able to actually, believe it or not, come up with something that was actually very competitive and close. Matter of fact, I think even the first couple of years, it even gets under what, so that's another thing, if you haven't read it in this, in the thing, this incentive program they have for the 60 months is kind of a declining incentive. It starts out the strongest they have, and then it gets a little bit less each year as time goes on. The first couple of years, we're actually able to get under the average of what they have over there. So for them to be able to put something together like that, I thought it was fantastic.
All right.
And there is penalties. They
Gary, do you have
have
any
to-
questions?
They have to meet the load.
Yeah, so there's another thing in there too. If you look at the contract stuff, they have these things called clawbacks. What that means is because we are cutting our margins so thin, there's a whole bunch of requirements in there. Once that incentive rate starts, they have to maintain a certain amount of usage and load factor and power factor. If they don't, then there's a chargeback that we give them. And the reason for that is because if they don't maintain that, the IMEA gives that charge to us because they're not maintaining that incentive rate.
For the
So-
contract, that triggers the B6, that's the
Correct.
B6 rate. that
The
you-
clawback.
Yeah, the
Call it
clawback would
claw-
be the B.
clawback.
Yeah, we may call it that, but it really, what it says, if you don't have the load to meet B7, you automatically are gonna be charged B6, and B6 is higher.
But what happens though, that Jim, what's also in that is retroactively, if they have too many months where they don't qualify, then the IMEA comes back to us a year later and we have to pay them back for all those overages. So that's why we have a penalty written into this
Okay.
contract with them that if they don't meet criteria, they end up having to pay us for it. So that way we
Is
make
that-
sure.
Is that in the rates that Verbal had put together?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
because I was gonna say, I didn't,
Yeah, I don't think the term clawback, that's what the engineers use, but I don't think that's actually in the contract is the word clawback.
Well, unless Carrie has questions, we can keep talking about it, or we could place it on
I know
file.
it's a very complicated topic, that's why I'm not trying to steamroll anything, but does anybody have any else details on it?
I think I
Now,
got it.
Let me, so I need a motion and second to place on file 1131-100520, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an agreement for the purchase of electricity from the city of Oglesby by GTI, LLC.
I will make the motion to place on file 1131-100520, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an agreement for the purchase of electricity from the city of Oglesby by GTI, LLC.
Second.
Augubright.
Aye.
Cullinan. Curran.
Aye.
Mieski.
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye.
Amy, in your minutes, the ordinance is entitled, and the name, it's GTI Oglesby
Oglesby, yeah.
LLC.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I mean, it doesn't, the ordinance is proper, just for the minutes, that's they're not just GTI LLC, they're GTI Oglesby LLC.
Next, number 6 on the agenda is the purchase of two 3750 three-phase pad mount transformers, $83,870. Freight is $1,450, for a total of $85,320.
So these transformers here, there are actually a couple different ones that they could go with. So you see there's some different quotes. We actually, if you see the email, they actually want the larger sized ones for a couple reasons. One, they have a little bit larger capacity, but the important thing is the smaller ones are between a 8 and 12 week delivery time. The larger ones are already in stock and they can be here within a week. So that's why I wanted to verify that those are the ones they wanted, so I have confirmation for that. And as you can see, I also want to make sure that whenever we do finally approve this, that it's after adopting the ordinance. So like, for example, if they don't want to, if they want to make some kind of modification to the previous ordinance we just placed on file, and we have to replace that on file again, I'm going to make a motion that we table the final purchase of these transformers, because I want to make sure that we have an agreement in place that allows us to make sure that these costs.
Can we make
get
a
recouped.
contingent on the agreement?
Agreement in place
Yeah.
will guarantee that the city will be and reimburse the cost.
That is correct, Mayor.
So we can't just make this contingent on the agreement?
Well, we're just placing on file right
Okay.
now. It's just the same as the agreement was.
All right.
So.
No more questions.
With that, I'll make a motion to place on file the purchase of 2 transformers for the GTI expansion of Phase 3, total cost of $85,320.
I'll second.
Augubright.
Aye.
Cullinan. Curran.
Aye.
Yasi.
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye.
Okay, the next one is discuss and vote on a vehicle rotation program and purchase a vehicle for the police department. And that's a Ram truck for $26,676. And this money will come from the
100% of that cost comes from impound and drug task force.
Wow.
What will be coming from the city of Oglesby would be to outfit with what they need inside.
So I think we should either vote for all of these together, or we should only reject all 3, because the vehicle rotation plan was to buy all the vehicles at once, get them done with, and be done with our yearly buying once every year. And that was the goal of the whole rotation program, was to say, hey, we have these 3 that we need this year, we're gonna buy them now. Next year, we'll figure out which ones we need next year, and we'll continue on with that. So if anyone thinks we should go one by one, we can, but I feel like if we're buying one, we should just get all 3 of them out of the way
Well,
this
We
meeting.
can do 7, 8, and 9. I think we have.
We can vote on them separately, but I think we should be under agreement
Well,
that we're gonna do them all at
so
once.
Let's discuss 8 and 9, so I understand. Both 8 and 9 are the same. They're 2020 Ford 150. They're crew cabs, 4x4. They're the same. We can get 2 of them.
Yes, from what I understand, and I think are they both the 3500s too? I believe.
I just know what we need
2500.
replaced.
One is a little cheaper.
So one's a 2500, or wait, hang on, let me look.
I think one's an extended cab, isn't that what Cully wanted for his,
You look down at the bottom here, and these quotes,
Yeah, hang on.
these are the 2 different types of parts, the very bottom right of quotes.
Oh,
And then
okay.
there's an E on the one that's for the electric department.
And so I know the reason we're getting the bigger one for the electrical department is because we're gonna put a snow blade on it, and the bigger engine and the more weight will help us plow the snow, is the reasoning why.
That's a.
That's the
29
$43,780. And then the parks is the 30,590 or the 32,865. And I think Bobby recommended getting the extended cab just because he needs the bigger bed for the Parks District. So that one would be the $30,590.
And the one for the electric would be 32,865?
No, it'd be the
No, the
43,780. And the reasoning for that is we're getting the bigger truck for plowing and all that kind of stuff is the reason behind it. And it also comes with the snow blade. That's another reason why it's more.
It's a 350.
Yes. And so if we wanted to wait for the 250, I think it was $1,400 less, but they're not in stock currently, so we probably want to get them for at least 3 months. So that'd be probably snow season that's getting here.
I have no doubt that we need the vehicles. My only question of all of them is the term vehicle rotation program. I think it's kind of funny. I know we both in agreement that we want them, but I think we almost look at them from different perspectives of our concerns. I know we talked about this earlier, and your concern was to get them based on the quality of what we need. My concern is I don't know if that's a great way to look at it, because my concern is what would happen if there'd ever be a year that the quality was very, very poor on an ambulance, a fire truck, and a bucket truck. You know, if we use that same mentality, though, again, this is smaller numbers, but that same mentality, we could be talking $500,000 plus then. That's my only concern with that method of using that thing. I'm not in any disagreement that we don't need these vehicles right now. Well, that's my concern is the term vehicle rotation program.
And so the reason we call it, so according to what the mayor and I talked about, we're moving one from one department to another. We're playing musical cars right here, or musical trucks to get everyone what they need, because the goal was to replace, we have a 96 that's in the Parks Department, I believe it's a 96, and then the electrical department, they welded the frame back together
Yeah.
this summer. So
Yeah, that's
that's
what I
another
got.
one we want to kind of get rid of, just because realistically, those are the two I don't think might even survive the next 3 months, let alone the next year before we buy a new vehicle. So that's why
I completely
I
agree
was
with
really
you.
worried about those two. And again, next year, I doubt we're going to need to buy anywhere near this amount of vehicles, because all the other ones, from what I understand, have
Yeah.
quite a few more years left in them.
Again, I'm completely good with that same assessment. My concern, though, is that we would get, I'm not so concerned about just the smaller trucks, it's the bigger pieces of equipment,
Right, the
obviously.
ambulances.
That if we were to buy 3 of those at the same year, wow, that's something that's really gonna kind of hamper our budget a little bit. That's my only concern.
And I'm guessing the ambulance will be in the next 2 years, most likely, next maybe even 3. That would be where we're pushing it. But this year, I don't really see us needing an ambulance. That's going to be our real major cost, besides fire trucks. Those are the two that are real expensive. So hopefully because I don't really see us getting more pickups next year, maybe one, but I doubt it. I don't know who would really need one, but that would be the year we'd probably get a bigger ticket item,
I
Yeah.
think
that kind of stuff.
one of the problems we ran into is, is we kept kicking the can down the road. When we start having to weld the frames together, we're putting our employees in harm's way. We can't do that. I just want to make sure that we got the money and the finances to do this. That's my concern. And we're jumping from a 30,000 to a $43,000 vehicle. But that comes, you say that comes with the
Snow blade and all that kind of
snow
stuff
blade.
too.
I'm sure that, that's a cost factor in there.
And I would guess the snow blade's between 5,000 and 6,000, if not more.
What I don't know is,
Oh,
is,
there.
is the, and I know Kelly's not here, but is the Parks Department, is that the one that has the snow blade on it currently? Is that why we're replacing that? Is that the one? Because I know there's one that they have that they drive around for the smaller
The
type
the
things.
Parks Department will get the Snowblade one because, well, so Bobby's current gray truck is only two-wheel drive, so he can't really even plow snow with it.
Okay,
So Rich's truck will move over there, but during the winter, Bobby's and Rich's trucks would both be able to if they had to plow snow. But I believe
Okay.
we're only getting the Snowblade on Rich's truck currently because we're gonna try to keep the Parks Department truck up and running and kind of new kind of thing without putting the blade on until we have to.
got it, okay. Again, I'm good with this year's, but that's my concern is, I just don't want to have a year that we come together and have to get major sizes of equipment and stuff like that, because I think that's when the goal is to, they say flatten the curve for other things. I think we want to flatten our curve with our vehicle spending too.
Well, in the next 2 years, I think again, pickups, I don't really see being the major purchase going forward. I have a feeling next year we'll find a big piece of equipment. The year after, we'll probably find a big piece of equipment. That's what we're gonna invest in, that kind of stuff.
So are you saying you want to just vote on them all as one thing? Is that something we
I-
can do?
Can we do that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason you can't put them all, they're all on the agenda, so.
All right.
Can, be, and this has nothing to do with the vote, but it's just something that I want everybody to be aware of. I think it was about a month ago, the Illinois Appellate Court for the Fifth District handed down an appellate court decision. The city of O'Fallon, like the city of Oglesby and like a whole bunch of municipalities around here, had an impoundment fee ordinance. So if someone is charged with certain enumerated motor vehicle offenses, they're usually Class A misdemeanors, usually DUI, driving while revoked, driving while suspended. Their vehicle is impounded and towed. So they have a towing charge, and then they have an impoundment charge. They can challenge the impoundment charge, and if they do that, there's a hearing officer, Doug Kramarczyk, handles impoundment hearings for the city of Oglesby and the city of LaSalle. And I'm not sure if he does it for Peru also, but I'm pretty sure it's Oglesby and LaSalle are combined. In this O'Fallon case, a class action lawsuit was filed challenging the amount of money O'Fallon was charging for impoundment. I want to say they were charging like a $500 or $600 impoundment fee. And the court said, now, I don't think we charge that much. I think we charge a couple hundred maybe, or if even. Anyway, the court.
Nowhere near that,
The
yeah.
court said that there's allegations in this complaint that it's a matter of filling out some paperwork that takes, 10 or 15 minutes. So the court questioned whether the ordinance imposing a $500 or $600 fee was in fact a fine and therefore impermissible. So, and that's what the court held. So when this case came down, I got a hold of Kerry and I got a hold of Chief Hayes, and I said, until we get a little more clarification, let's hold off on doing any impoundment tickets for a little while. So I want everybody to be aware of that. I suspect that either there'll be a petition for rehearing filed, or there may be a petition for leave to appeal to the Illinois Supreme Court filed. So I don't know if that case is the final say-so right now. I think at some point, Kerry, this may be something you and Doug, Chief Hayes and I'll have to go down with. I think we ought to figure out just how much time is it taking us, to process the paperwork for the tow. I think that's valid, and the impoundment. Because I want to make sure that we can justify,
Yeah.
whatever we're
Whatever
charging.
we're
I don't want to be in the city of O'Fallon's situation, where, somebody's asking for, a bunch of money back for a class action lawsuits.
And
I
I-
just want you to be aware
I
of
think
that.
DeKalb just went through something a couple
Similar
years
to that?
ago, because they have signs now on, when you enter town, saying that ordinance and all that kind of stuff, so I
Yeah, I
don't
think there
know.
might be some things with posting.
I believe that's what they're doing
I don't
now.
have a copy of the appellate court decision with me, but just FYI, what we're getting on the impoundment could potentially be impacted. Doesn't matter, you got the money for it now. That would be something in the future. It has nothing. For a month or a year, or one time?
All right, so I'm gonna make a motion to vote to purchase 3 vehicles, one for the police department, one for the parks department, one for the electrical department.
I'll second.
Augubright.
Aye.
Owen. Curran.
Aye.
Yasi.
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye. Number 10, discussion on proposed food truck ordinance.
Okay, so, I think, I wish I would have known this, but there is a Fun Fest cost ordinance that we charge separately for vendors at Fun Fest. And I think it should at least match that amount, if not be more than that amount, is how I'm looking at the permit fee. Everything else in the ordinance, I'm pretty much okay with besides that.
I thought that's what we did.
You okay?
I wanna say it was $350 is what a food truck for the Fun Fest is, so. I wanna say it was $350 for the Fun Fest food ordinance, for that food truck,
So
so.
would you suggest $350 for 5 days?
Yes, or a week even, we'll give
Right.
them the week, that kind of stuff.
So I understand the reasoning for that, and it makes sense. I don't care how much we charge them. If the idea is that we don't want to, the idea, I think, the general idea is that we want to dissuade from businesses coming in that distract from our brick and mortar buildings that pay property tax, utilities, and generate sales tax and all those kinds of things. My concern is, I don't want to kneecap ourselves by preventing a business that's never come to Oglesby before and wanted to see if they had a food truck or some kind of thing that would potentially be profitable for them. My concern would be, like, I'll give you an example. So like the funnel cake thing. I don't think the funnel cake thing really was a big deal because it didn't really hurt any other businesses. Now, if there was a funnel cake business already in the city and we're taking away from that, that's a problem. But I like the idea that a business could come in and it forces more foot traffic in town because maybe there's something that's there. I don't want to, I'm not saying we should let them set up permanently shop, but I don't want to dissuade a business from coming in to see if that could be profitable. And that's my concern by raising the price so high that we're trying to solve one problem, but yet we don't allow for other expansion opportunities like that to happen. I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
Okay. So that's my concern, what you guys think about that. That's, unless you think that's so minor, we shouldn't worry about it.
I think it's extremely minor if I had gone on a limb here and say that, but, and again, and so we're not gonna let them sell any other items that any of the other businesses in Oglesby sell, then, I understand they just sold funnel cakes, but I feel like they're selling other items that would compete against other businesses in town, that kind of stuff as well.
So that's the thing, I know Andrew Rennie brought that up last time. I don't know if I agree with that idea that you're saying that we're not being fair to one because you allow one but not the other. I don't think that's a violation of rights. To me, that's not one of the protected things. If you want to sell something that is not allowed, or something that we don't have normally, versus something that's like pizzas that hurts something like that, I don't find that it's a violation of rights to allow one business to come in versus stopping another. Do you think?
I think the concern I expressed was that we're starting to say that you can have certain food vendors serving certain food items are okay, but other vendors are not okay, which is why I think you can either prohibit them if you so desire, or put this ordinance together, with whatever fee you want to charge if you so desire. I think the concern I was expressing is we're going to make a lower charge if nobody in town sells that particular food item versus a higher charge if somebody in town does sell the food item. That, I think, could be subject to challenge.
But how? Because it's not like we're going against a protected right.
So this is what I'm thinking. They're here. Our businesses are here every single week, right? So these guys are gonna pick one good weekend to come here. They're gonna get that. Oh, they're here for a week rush. And I think $350 is the least of their worries if they're gonna be selling that much food.
Let me give
At
you.
the end of the day, you gotta remember the people that are here every single week
Oh, no, don't
during
get
the
me-
winter,
don't get me
during the
wrong.
snow, all that kind of stuff.
Don't get me wrong. Let me give you a counterpoint to that. What if there was and this goes beyond just food
Fundraiser.
truck, but something that comes into town that doesn't, something that we don't have. And let's say they get authorized and they're on Walnut next to the different businesses and bars and stuff like that. So more people come because they want to get, I have no idea, widgets.
Funnel cakes.
Funnel cakes, or if that's the only thing they have, or cotton candy, or what, it doesn't matter. Something that they don't normally have, so it causes more foot traffic, so therefore, because people come for that, they now go and they go to the other establishments for more food or more booze or whatever it is they do, just because that's there. So you could actually be enhancing the other businesses for some, and I understand it, it's kind of subjective then to who we allow. I don't think there's a problem with that. If somebody comes in and says, hey, I'd like to have the cost waived for $350 or $500, whatever the cost is, waived to be able to come in for these 4 days. And then we vote on saying, sure, that sounds great. I don't think that's a problem.
I feel like all the business owners that own anything food or beverage related would probably differ from here. I don't know if you've heard from any of them saying, oh, this is a great idea to let someone in for no cost at all to see how it works in town for a week, and then they're going to Iowa next week, and then they're going to Wisconsin the week after that. But
Well, I'm not saying you would let them in all the time or something like that, but if they wanted to see if they wanted to set shop up here for a business, I think it could hurt us more in the long run.
I don't know. I think that $350 is kind of a fair, let me see if this is going to work here. Even if it were a taco truck and we have at least 2 businesses that I know of that serves tacos, I don't think it's really going to hurt those 2 businesses for the week that they're here, because you've got people in foot traffic and now they're going to go into those establishments for beverages and so forth.
Let me give you a counterpoint on the other side of it. Let's say there's a business that comes in and we charge them $350 and they're selling pizzas or whatever tacos. And they are making so well and selling so many tacos that they decide to pay that $350 to stay here. And they are hurting the businesses that sell pizza, because we have multiple, we have taco places, we have pizza places that sells that stuff. What if all of a sudden their business is hurting because we just charged them $350? In that case, your ordinance goes the opposite way.
Well, maybe there's a maximum on the number of weeks that you can have the food truck here.
I think the
That's what it
$350 barrier of entry is pretty low for a food establishment that's going to be here for a week. I could guess what they sold out there by Casey's, but I have a feeling it was dramatically higher than that amount is what they made off of it. And I think they could have paid that and still made a pretty successful week out of it.
But by that same argument that you said, if they could pay that and still make a very good week, what if, I'm almost leaning to what Carrie said there, we have to limit that, because what if a business comes in and they decide to pay that $350 and they stay here forever? And
That's
then they
why
end
we're
up
doing
hurt-
the weekly thing though, too. Because then the council's still going to be voting on it, from what I understand.
Council
Yeah.
still has to approve it.
So we could deny them if they
We could
want to
deny
still
them.
pay it?
Yeah.
Like, if you make a food truck only, because like I said, that was a trailer, plus they got a stock truck. So you got a couple of vehicles there. And it proved,
I think they all qualify under the same.
Under the same.
Ordinance,
whether
right,
it's a
Jim?
Trailer
they
or
don't get that, like, it proved where they had the tacos and stuff. At the end of the day, that truck's gone. It's there, they work so many hours, and they're gone, they don't think it's there. This one was left there, because Jeremy
Yeah.
set that up. That's who they got their power from, they got their power from Jeremy.
That's
The
my
new-
only
the new
concern.
owner.
I mean, I want to protect the businesses here to make sure that they're going to be as profitable as we can, but I don't want to dissuade from the possibility. I mean, I've lived in other parts of the country where food trucks would come in and it would cause crazy amounts. Now, granted, we don't have a massive shopping district, but food trucks would come and it would cause people to come to that area specifically for things. And then they would They go to the bars, the establishments, sometimes they bring their kids in the daytime, then they go to the park, they do all kinds of things like that. I would hate to make an ordinance that would make that more difficult for economic development. I know I'm going out on a limb a little bit here. I'm not saying by us allowing a funnel cake truck or a cotton candy truck is somehow gonna make Oglesby crazy, but I think
Money
anything.
will rain from the sky. Kind of thing,
Yeah,
no.
exactly. But I do think that anything we do that helps towards the economic development, that gets more people walking and being around our downtown area is beneficial. And I just think that trying to dissuade some of these businesses, I think that could potentially hurt us.
So you're saying there's three things that this proposed food truck ordinance need to have? The price is $3.50, limit of 5 days, and they have to have council approval.
7 days, I think a week is fine.
Yeah, we'll do 7 days.
I would love the option that we could waive that fee if a business has never, ever come to
You're going
Oglesby
down a
before.
road, though, you're gonna be picking favorites, though. You don't wanna be doing that either.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's a protected thing. It's not like you could say, you're being unfair to me, because it's not like it's a protected right to have their food truck come or not come.
I just think they're all paying real estate taxes in town if they have a brick and mortar, and that's kind of why I'm backing them up here, to tell you the truth, because our taxes are not the lowest in the area, that's for sure.
Oh, I know. That's a whole other discussion to have.
Yes, but that's the number one reason I'm backing the brick and mortars here.
I know. I'm just saying to have somebody come that's never come here before to see if their business could be useful or beneficial.
They can come to Fun Fest and show the people of Oglesby.
This
Right.
is true.
Just one thing, what I drafted here, kind of just changed certain things that are in your current ordinance. Your current ordinance doesn't require council approval. It requires that, like, I would come to the clerk's office, I'd request a permit, I'd provide my paperwork, my proof of these things, the clerk's office would issue me a permit. If you want me to make council approval for this, I've got it, it's not in your current ordinance, and the ordinance I drafted simply tried to address a couple issues. One, make it at least $250, limit it to 5 days, because we were thinking about Fun Fest. And I tweaked some other things that I saw that just weren't right as I went through our existing ordinance. The ordinance the change I drafted and presented to the council, and your current ordinance, neither of those require council approval. We can do it, it's not a.
Can we make it mayoral approval? Just so it's not on the agenda every time, or?
Yeah, I guess I would be thinking about is, you don't wanna have a situation where somebody's gotta wait 2 weeks to get a,
Yeah.
a permit. Again, if you wanna make them wait 2 weeks, you have every right to do that.
I'm just thinking, as long as someone on the council sees it, and the mayor is probably the one that should see it first, that'd probably be the best option, unless you guys really want to vote on it. It's up to you.
Well, I don't think we can vote on it tonight anyways. It was just discussion. but-
No, I'm talking about the actual food trucks if this ordinance
Yeah,
passes.
Yeah, right now, it would allow the clerk to issue,
Yeah.
if somebody comes in with all the right stuff.
Proof of insurance
Yeah,
and letter
and the
from
clerk
LaSalle
just-
County Health
Just like you'd
Department.
issue a building permit,
Yeah.
Wait,
without.
This is actually what happened this time. This caused the debate with the ruckus, is that we had somebody come in, the clerk's office issued the permit as per the ordinance.
Yep, so I'm saying we have the mayor sign off on it before we give out those permits, is what because I'm just thinking
I can change that.
logistically, it's
That's
a
not
lot
problem. I
easier
just gotta-
than
it's
every 2
not
weeks we're voting on
included
it
here.
kind
Right.
of thing.
Okay.
Okay, you want me to put it so that, now, what should the fee be?
350?
350.
Okay, change the fee to $350, and the permits to be issued by the mayor.
Yes.
Well, say like after review by and after the documentation and review is done by the clerk's office, mayor issues the permit.
Mayor or designee,
Okay.
because if Don's
Right,
off and on
yeah.
vacation,
Okay,
Shouldn't they have to go through a food inspection before they open?
that's
Yes.
in there.
It's already in there,
It's in
yep.
your ordinance, it's in your current ordinance.
The Twinkle ice cream truck that travels through town, what ordinance does it fit in?
comes in,
That's a police issue.
he has a permit, I do know that. How and why I have, that's another thing.
I
we gotta
haven't
look
seen
at.
him for a long time, so I don't know.
No, I think he
Well,
was
this is only
around
good
not
for
too
5
long
days.
ago.
I'm sorry, do you want it 5 days or 7 days? What do you- I-
7 days, please.
7 days.
Okay, I'll make those changes.
We'll look into the ice cream truck. I have no clue.
Solicitor license?
No, I think that's door to door kind of thing.
They do get a permit or I know they get something, to come in here. Okay, so you're gonna.
I'll make those
redress-
changes.
Okay. Discussion and review on the 8/10/2020 storm response.
So we had a meeting with all the department heads and, you know, everybody in the city that responded for our storm to take a look at a couple different things. We have a communications plan, a hazard plan, we have a mitigation plan now, and we also had a disaster plan to kind of see which roles kind of fit. Meeting went for about an hour or so. We had quite a few inputs on it. Haven't had a whole lot of time since everything's been with GTI lately, but we did come out with some things that can try to help better, get a better response if something like this were to happen again. But to be honest, we kind of went in knowing that I think the city did a phenomenal job. Just really did a phenomenal job with the amount of widespread damage that we did to how we were able to manage it. So really what this was focused on was what kind of things did we not have on hand that we should have better been prepared to expect for. Some of those were contact numbers for areas that were further than our immediate response. We're looking at some handheld radios. We're going to look at the possibility of having, we're still looking at whether it should be a generator for City Hall or if we should have an alternate City Hall site. We're looking at what's the most cost-effective means for that.
I think the fire department should be a command center next time.
I do
That'd be a
too.
great idea.
So we talked about that. One of the problems and that was what the initial one said. I know that's what you told me. We talked about that. The problem was, let's say we have City Hall here, and there's a natural disaster emergency going on. How do we get people to the fire station when there's lines and roads and you can't, because it's about a half
What-
mile away.
So what's the clerk's office doing in an emergency?
So it's the idea.
Because IVRD is here to take our emergency
I-
calls.
IVRD isn't gonna help us.
Correct. I mean,
This is gonna help us.
They're not gonna take our calls when they call the non-emergency
No,
number now?
The thing that we have to do, and if the smart meters, if we're able to put a program together, we have to divide the city into zones, districts, and grids. And basically, to give you an example, Deer Park, the whole, everybody was out of power down there. And what we were getting is one call from this location, one call from that location. And what we need to do is establish a program where all the people that were out of power and called in from Deer Park would go into one grid. This way, the electric department knows it's not one or two customers, it's the whole area, that they could restore service to the masses. And our computers are here. All the stuff that we're putting, they have to get up and running so we can feed this information.
We were doing a write-down list from what I remember when they were calling in, so.
But that's, you're
I-
going down a list, and you're having one on Third Street, one on Fitzgerald, one on every street in the city. If you have them set up where it's in zones, and on our computers, that'll tell us that we've got so many people out. That'll tell us if we've got the whole circuit out, or if we've got part of the circuit from this cut out, east or west, or however it is. We've got some work to do. One of the things that we cannot do is have the people call the people have the people that are out of service, call the people in the field to say, I'm out of power. They're trying to
Well, the people in the
restore
field need to quit picking up the phone calls at that
Well, so
point, though,
that's,
too.
so that's one of the things we talked about. The
They need to
problem.
change their voicemail to call whatever number.
So, so that's one of the things we talked about. The problem is they still need to be able to communicate with people. So how do we do that when people would normally call the different departments and stuff like that? So we took the numbers off the webpage to see if we can reduce that. But for example, Mark is getting so many calls. I mean, his hands is in equipment trying to do stuff, and he's constantly getting calls from people. So one of the things that we're going to talk about doing is we have a frequency that Oglesby has. We're thinking about going back to handheld radios. I guess at one point in time we used to have that many years ago, and then kind of they went away with it because of cell phones. But we want to have some handheld radios for our city workers and emergency workers in the event that we would need that. So that's one of the things we're looking into. But to answer your question about a couple different things when it comes to City Hall, two things. One, this city has kind of an issue with residents call City Hall for everything. Way more stuff than anything I've ever lived in. I've never lived in a place in my entire life that you would call.
Have you ever been in their city halls? I can only imagine San Diego's. It's got to be a call center, but
So,
If you think
but,
we
but they don't call for
Gotta
their.
make City Hall the call center.
no.
But if
We
you're-
only have
what
3
happens when you're
people.
not open? You're gonna come here to be the call
We'll
center?
have to, we'll have to.
No.
So
We're gonna put in a program that we don't have to keep track of what zone we're in. Then.
No, I agree. We talked about that. That Velcom is what we have that people can call for dispatching and stuff like that. But either way, we're not going to be able to stop people from wanting to talk to City Hall and things like that.
I'm here to tell you, though, if you set up incident command, as it should be set up, and I thoroughly am in favor of having the command center be at the fire ambulance station. They already have the backup generator. They have room for you to bring your laptop and log in there. Once you set up incident command, you can change those voicemails or whatever to say, if you need to report, call what, yada, 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 the number. And that would be going to the command center to somebody who is there answering the phones that's been designated by the incident commander. I just feel that, incident command should be opened up whenever we have something like this. It doesn't have to be life-threatening or those major incidences. It is, but the whole thing that is signed up by Incident Command is really it's really designed to help the issues such as what we had with the derecho.
So we did talk about that a little bit. A couple problems with that. The biggest issue is when you have an issue like this where you can't physically get around because there's trees down everywhere and there's stuff like that. The problem with getting over to the fire department was, how do you move an entire group of people to work over there?
How would you move people here?
Yeah, how's the fire department, the police department, streets, electrical guys getting here?
So, if
We have 3 city clerks people. I guess they could be the center of the city, but I don't think they're really that involved in the actual
I think we're getting
response.
So the other thing that we talked about for the possibility of looking into a generator for the city hall wasn't necessarily just for that. It's the idea of what if something happened to where the city was actually out of power for multiple days on end. It's to allow the means that City Hall can still continue to operate and do their functions that they need to do with power. So that's one of the things we looked at. The alternate is, yes, they could set up either at the police station or the fire station
fire
for long-term
station,
type. So we did discuss that. There's some issues with that. We're still looking at that. One of the things, the action items the clerk had was to see how easy and hard it is to have numbers switched. The chief even had a suggestion to where you can have the numbers already switched there, that they ring in both places, and you just silence the other place. So that way, we don't have to call FESIC to make the change, to make the phones if there's an emergency that hit, because we might not be able to get hold of them anyways. So that we could just change locations, take the ringer off silent, and now we're operating City Hall at another location. So that's so we talked about a lot of things, and we're still looking at our options. So,
And we have laptops in City Hall now because of the COVID, so now we can go mobile. They can go anywhere and just plug in literally anywhere now because we have those kind of computers ready to go. And the one thing I did get out of this is the smart meters. We should populate them enough in areas so then we can actually start reading kind of what's going on in that area. So if they're all out in one area And I think that's really what I got out of this, is we should really be pushing that program, because that program will tell us more instantly than 800 phone calls will.
The smart meters, if we can set it up correctly, we'll be able to pinpoint what the cause is and where the initial problem is. The other thing is that we have to develop a list that we have people on, that are on life support. We had, after they've been out of power for about a day and a half, 2 days, the people on life support system increased in Oglesby. You know, that's life. We were trying to get people on. The idea is, in any storm, you get the multiples on first, and you keep doing with the multiples, and then you get down to the twos, the threes, the individuals.
I would think we would need to have a list of those people who are actually on ventilators, which is life
Right. Yeah,
support.
I mean, we
But I don't
have
know
to.
how we're gonna get the
We-
notice out for who's on oxygen, because that could be,
Does the
Huge.
fire or the medical have, well, I'm trying to think what the program's
They-
called, but can they see that, or can they not know? Okay.
no, because there's HIPAA.
Okay.
You know, so we can't tack into the DMEs to see.
It's
who
gonna
has
take us some
distributed.
time to get this developed, and we'll keep working at it. We're not gonna get it solved tomorrow.
Yeah,
I would really strongly suggest that members of the council look at the modules that are out there to take for free, all on incident command. So they understand what the roles are in incident command and what their role might be, should we have to open up incident command.
I just want to reemphasize, I know that we could probably talk a ton of different options and what we all think our best way to handle this is in the future. I just want to reemphasize that I think the city did a phenomenal job on its recovery efforts and bringing everything back.
Sure they did.
So, again, let's not please take this as a, hey, this is what we have to do to make this better. I think we did a great job. It's just, what are these things that we can do to make it easier, safer, and better? One of the other things that came out of it was, so we only have a couple homes in Oglesby right now that have an authorization via solar panels, right? Because they have to actually go through the city to get that approved. The problem is, if you have a whole home generator, which some do exist in Oglesby, right now, there is no legal thing that you have to go through to get an approval for the city. So you can just have that attached to your home, which people do. And the problem with that is, the city workers are not, because you don't go through the process to get it approved in the city, we're not aware of who's attached. So therefore, when you're trying to make fixes and stuff like that, you could have things that's backfed live power back into the grid somewhere that they're trying to work on, which is dangerous. So one of the things that I want to talk about, and this will be something I'll probably have to work with the city attorney on, is how we can go about having a thing to where we require residents to, I don't want to say get approved, but we need to have a record of who has a whole home generator in the city that's attached to the
So how do
grid.
the large utilities do this? Do they make people register, or?
No, we looked at it. You don't have to.
They
No,
don't
like,
have to
what's
be
it-
registered, but theoretically, they should be inspected by the electrical inspector, so they are hooked up properly.
No, I'm talking about like Ameren, Corn Belt. How do they handle this
I don't
situation?
believe-
Because
I-
there's no way they have manpower working on this, because what that costs them just to have people looking at generators all day is what I'm
The
saying.
bill, city electrical inspectors.
Yeah.
Tommy, I can tell you, this came up, this issue, and maybe Jim Kleiner or Dom can explain this better, because Gene Scarry, who's the Spring Valley Fire Marshal, obviously an electrician also, mentioned, I guess he said there's a way to hook the home generators up so that they don't backfeed into the system.
Sure, you gotta have a
Correct.
throw switch.
Yeah,
There's
and he said, we need to make sure, like in Spring Valley, that we inspect those and we make sure that everybody who's got one, whatever you're talking about, Dom, has that switch. So, that's something that you may want to require everybody that has one to get a permit. We can just charge a nominal amount for the permit, but that'll get somebody out there to make sure that they've got,
That
I guess,
switch,
the
yeah.
switches that would prevent that.
Correct. So, I mean, those are some of the things that we've been looking at, is things that can make things safer and better response. So there is one other thing. Apparently, the city has not had an ESDA coordinator for probably 20 years. So we talked about some ideas of who would make good people that we know that. So I thought that we would put that out at a meeting. If there's somebody that would be interested in being an ESDA coordinator for the city, that they can let City Hall know, send out an application for it or a resume, and we'll take a look at it. If we have some good qualified people with the qualifications, we'll look at that. If not, there's a couple people in mind inside the city that we would ask, but we wanted to float it out there first for that.
And so, what, like,
They
job
help-
description here? Like,
An ESDA coordinator, I don't want to
I'm
go
just
over
thinking
the-
like the chief of the fire department would probably be the number one candidate for that. That's why I'm asking this question.
Well, because he's already, so somebody like a fire chief would be a qualified individual for it. But the problem is the fire chief is already doing fire chief things.
Okay.
It'd be basically your person that helps coordinate information, because instead of like what's going on at City Hall, where they're just got a madhouse of information, they're trying to pass things along, an ESDA coordinator would help curtail some of that information and make sure information goes out to the right people and things like that.
ESDA stands for,
I'm looking at my notes here, I don't have that
South
written down.
Bending has one. Hang on.
I'm thinking
Emergency
emergency
service.
Emergency
something.
Service Department is, I'm not exactly sure, something with emergency services. It's in our disaster plan, but the position hasn't been held for over 20 years.
I think it's emergency service disaster administrator, but I'm not.
Yep.
I'm not-
That's what Amy just said.
One of the
too.
That's almost
recommendations
gonna
too.
be the
You
incident commander.
actually need somebody who understands how to restore the service.
So we need
Thing you do in
electrical.
point A, point B, point C. But we'll work our way through that.
Tom, what made us lose power Saturday night for 2 hours?
That's not on the agenda items, I'll talk about that in my reports if you'd like.
Gonna go to number 12 now?
All right. I'm just gonna say 12 and 13. I don't think we should do both.
Okay?
That's my only view on that because that would cut parking down to almost nothing on all those streets.
So you're saying, okay, so when you say don't do both, you're not saying you don't want, you're saying you don't want both at the same time?
I think number 12 would be the better option if we were going to do one. Don't get me wrong, because even if you can't park behind a driveway, you can have them all staggered and be blocking both sides of the road still. That's why I'm thinking number 1, if we're really worried about emergency services, would be the one we'd probably go with.
I would agree.
I agree with you. Number
There-
12 is the best way.
There we go. Look at that.
Well, the only reason I put it on there is because, so when I was looking for reasons to justify this, I asked the police department to go through for all the police reports, because I'm thinking that there'd be a lot of side swipe reports and things like that. They're, as far back as they had, I think they went back 12 or 18 months, they didn't have any. They had not one side swipe report, but what they did have was people backing out of driveways and hitting people behind them. So we talked about that, and Grant, so I did talk to the chief today. He happened to be in the office here, and I mentioned something to him. He, though, has, he's worked in plenty of other municipalities, and he's never, out of all the ones he's worked in, he's never heard of any of them that actually have this no parking behind other driveways and stuff like that. Margus is the one that mentioned to me that some municipalities have that. I don't know how common that is. I am concerned because that one would be a very difficult thing to approve, because one, it would be citywide. And then what is, are cops going to have to give citations for people? I mean, it really would be a pain, difficult. The only reason we talk about it is because that is a known actual problem going on. The parking on the narrow side streets, there is a very large response that people do want that. So that is great. That would solve, that would probably solve some danger issues. It would solve emergency service vehicles getting through. But it probably wouldn't, the problem with that is it doesn't actually do anything for the one thing that we actually have records of there being a problem. So that's the only reason I bring it up and mention it. And but you're absolutely right. If we actually adopted both of them, you're restricting parking even further then. And the survey numbers, even though they showed that there was favorable for both, that number did start going down, declining, that was for both at the same time.
And how many surveys did you not get back?
Well, quite a few. We only got about, we sent out 350 and we got 90 back. So about a quarter of them is what we got.
I think the parking on one side is the way to go.
I think that's the most important right now, so we can make sure that our ambulances and fire trucks can get to where they need to get to.
I kind of agree. I would like to start with, we could put together an ordinance to include those first 7 streets that we did surveys on. Because in the surveys that did come back, there was people that made mentions also, like, they would say, what about Spring Street? What about Magnell Street? All these other ones as well. Again, I just wanted to annotate the ones that I knew were the biggest problem areas. I think if we start with those and to see what the response is, if that is great, we could either just go ahead and do the other ones or expand upon a survey that would give an option for more streets.
I think we should see how it works first, and then.
For those initial 7?
Yeah, the
Yes.
initial 7, see how it goes.
Does anybody have any thoughts on number 13, though? Because, again, that is a problem. I mean, the other amusing thing.
I think I have to agree with Tommy. If you did parking on one side and then number 13, it'd create more of a mess.
Yeah, I agree. The problem, though, that's kind of funny, though, is there was some comments that people wrote down that said, I thought that was already a law.
I know I did, and I know I have backed into somebody right out of my driveway.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell people. I mean, I guess we could make that ordinance for the first thing, but then number 13, ask people to be kind and try not to park behind somebody's driveway because you're probably going to get hit eventually. I don't know what else to do in that regards.
We can ask that and to be kind, but if the police aren't going to enforce it, which they won't because it's not an ordinance.
Yep.
You're still going to see it happen.
And that's
But
gonna-
maybe that's something that we watch.
Yeah, and that's going
How
to,
about the yellow paint, when you do 5 feet on either side of the driveway?
on every single driveway in every single thing around the entire city.
Be-
Be a good summer project.
There'd be no place to park then.
I don't know about painting the opposite of every single I don't know about that. That seems a little overkill to me. Plus, I don't know how beautiful that would make Oglesby by having a whole bunch of dashed yellow lines going down the street.
Maybe we could do yellow and a green and something too. But anyway, let's move to 14.
I was gonna say, I would be very much in favor of taking 12 as an ordinance and going.
Okay.
I
we'll look at
think
it.
that's a smart thing.
You'll get a hold of me with the specifics.
I will do that, yes, sir.
And then we can monitor 13 and see what kind of reports we're getting, because not everybody will report that they backed into somebody.
This is true. Well, I will tell
So-
you, if you do number 12, you'll solve half of 13's problems.
Correct, you will.
Well, so again, in
Mm-hmm.
the suburbs, they switch roads every day. So if you want to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday one side and the other one's the other side, you can always do that, Jason.
You ain't gonna believe what the chief told me today. I could not believe it. He said there was this problem existed in another municipality he was in, and they, for whatever reason, there was so much argument of which side of the street they wanted to have people, the no parking. So they had an agreement that every year it changed. Can you imagine? He said it actually worked out phenomenal. I could not believe that.
DeKalb has multicolored permit streets, so
Oh
your
my God.
colored permit has to be that street. You can't park one block that way.
I don't know
one
if I
block
want
that way.
to.
It's
I don't know if I
crazy.
want to support anything crazy like that.
Yeah, so.
Okay, number 14, discussion regarding ordinance 676-060208, sidewalks and pedestrians ways of the subdivision ordinance of the city of Oglesby. And basically what this, on March 13, 2008, the city adopted an ordinance that required concrete sidewalks be installed within all subdivisions on both sides of the street and pedestrian ways. How this came to light is we issued a certificate of occupants, and the homeowner didn't install a sidewalk. And I'm not looking to go back, cause for a part of this, we haven't enforced it. And in some of this, because of the landscaping the homeowners have done, there's no way that some sidewalks can be installed. So the question is, how do we approach this thing?
Would that be part of the permit, that the permit designates that sidewalks be installed going forward?
Believe it is.
It is now, I believe.
So the homeowner that didn't install but put in decorative items,
I
It wasn't
believe,
there for 'em?
hopefully we're gonna be able to resolve that issue. And I believe we will. But we've gotta, look at a common sense way going forward. If somebody built a house in 2009 and they didn't put some sidewalks in, and now you're coming 11 years later and saying, uh-oh, you're in violation of this ordinance, and you gotta put a sidewalk in, and they already got landscaping in there. I just have a,
And I think we were supposed to take a deposit, and for some reason, that house didn't have a deposit put down for this concrete, is why we're having this issue. Because I believe I don't know, Jim, you can help me here, but I think there's a deposit they usually make when they're building a house.
Well, our land development code requires sidewalks. I think there's a provision in there that they can be waived by the city. Is that right, Jim? Do you remember? But absent the city waiving them, sidewalks are required. What you, pardon?
Waiving happens with the preliminary plan subdivision.
Okay. What I think happens in a lot of cases is the developer doesn't want to put them in until the house, doesn't want to
Is
put them
built.
in. Because if he puts them in and then, they roll over them with the cement trucks to pour the foundation, they tear them all up. So the developers will usually say, well, I don't want to put them in until some later date. And then the problem is they don't always put them in. And the statute, we've got the ordinance here that, says that they're supposed to be installed. And nobody kind of catches it, so to speak.
Yeah, there's a couple other things with it, though. Like, for example, I've talked to a few homeowners, some of them are even in this room, that they don't have it in front of their house because when they put their house in, which was after 2008, the one next to them didn't have it. So, I mean, it makes sense. Why would you put a sidewalk in front of your home if it's not attaching to anything near you? So, I think we need to have something that goes in place that if there was a home that was built after 2008 and that home is attached to an open sidewalk section, you need to put a sidewalk in.
Oh, you just love making friends in subdivisions, don't you,
Hey,
man?
what's right is right. I'm just saying.
So if I put one in your subdivision, that means my neighbors have to put one in?
so
Is that what you're telling me?
So the thing is, okay.
Let's be real here.
Tommy, I might agree with you again. If these houses have been built 10, 12 years and they haven't had a sidewalk in, to come back and do it now, it doesn't make any sense to me.
if you
But-
don't go backwards though on it, then you really can't go forward on it either. And say, well, we've always had it in place, but now we're gonna enforce it.
My things are, we got kids that walk to school, and they use the parks and things like that.
Another thing your subdivision doesn't have, a
I-
park.
I'm not bringing that up. What, you want me to sit here advocating that my subdivision needs a park? I mean, we could talk about that too, I guess, but, no, my concern is the kid, well, nobody in my subdivision is walking to school, though. You know what I mean? They're crossing the interstate. So, I mean, that's a whole other thing. I can't control how that happened, but the other areas of the city where people are walking to school and there's sidewalk, and then all of a sudden now they gotta get out of the sidewalk and walk in the street. That's the kind of stuff I'd like to try to prevent from happening.
I'd like us to go back and take a common sense approach into how we can address this. If there's sidewalks that are connected and somebody hasn't put one in to connect, I think maybe we can look at, there's no sidewalks there. And the landscaping is, we got some places that you have to tear down all their landscaping. And they haven't had a sidewalk in the front of their house for 10 years.
Can I ask
Now
what-
what do you do?
Tom, can I ask what you mean by, by landscaping? You mean just grass, or there's something other, that they, some structure they have there?
Well, they built up their land, and you can't put a sidewalk.
Tree, fence, flowers. Nice mailbox.
Can they have a tree that close to the?
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
It's a,
Everything but a tree. Let's move on.
Okay,
Tree.
a fence, a fence.
let us take it, I would hope that we would be able to take this one step at a time and use common sense and work our way through it to a solution.
I
Yeah,
think, yes, if they're building a house forward, we should definitely enforce it.
I just have some residents that come up to me and say, hey, my kid has to walk on the sidewalk, and then he's got to get out of this, and he's got to walk on the street for, you know,
But most of the
200
schools are
feet.
surrounded by the older housing, so now we're going to 1940,
there's-
1950.
I don't think there's too many problems I've run across with the older sections that don't have the
There's
sidewalks.
3 on Columbia.
Well, so keep in mind, so that's
At
a different
least.
story. If those houses were built before 2008, they're not included in this ordinance that we have. But if they've been built after 2008, that was clearly in the ordinance.
But now we're just talking about really 3 subdivisions. And I don't know how they're walking to school, but I guess one of them might be a problem. The other 2, you can't really walk to school at all.
You talking about my area?
Your area and the
Yeah.
one down
Well,
south of town, I don't think they're walking to school either.
yeah, the fact that there's not a single one in mine at all, I'd have to go back and see if that was one of them that had some kind of approval that they didn't have to have
There's an
it.
agreement there, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, if they have an agreement, but that's a different story. I mean, one of the reasons I'm here is because I didn't agree with the council vote 3 years ago that allowed the medical facility to bypass putting sidewalks in. Because the reason that they said was not even true. That's actually the reason I'm here today, believe it or not.
You're talking about St. Margaret's?
Yeah, or no, is it St. Margaret's or FVCH? Yeah, St. Margaret's. Yeah, the information that they put out at the meeting was not necessarily true. So that's the reason I was frustrated, and that's one of the reasons I ran.
I voted for that.
You did vote for it. Do you remember that I handed out handouts as well?
Yes, I do.
Because it wasn't true. The statement based on that wasn't true?
Well, it's something that I'm sure we're gonna have some more discussion on it, so let's move down to discussion on social media policy.
So I thought we were done with this one.
Yeah, well, we haven't developed it yet. There's 2 things, I guess, there's 2 elements to it. And I talked to Androni. The one thing we can just simply vote on, which is just voting to not allow comments on any Facebook posts or pages or anything like that. That's the easy part. The second part's a little bit more difficult. I was hoping that we could get something for the workers here at City Hall, because they get a lot of requests to advertise for other things. And I think it would be good if they had something that they could state a policy for to not allow something, because there's a lot of private entities and stuff that want them to advertise different things, and I think that's some of the things that we've advertised in the past, I think, is in conflict with that.
So as in not-for-profits, schools, city events, church,
Well, you could make the argument
anything
that,
else?
are you saying what I have an issue with?
Those are the
that-
ones I would allow,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and
Well,
then everything else,
I have an
you're a
issue.
private enterprise.
I have an issue with private teams for things, because if you say that you can allow this for softball, for baseball, then what if there's something starting lacrosse, ultimate frisbee? I mean, where are you gonna stop it
If
at?
it's a City of Oglesby sponsored
If
event,
it's
I'm
city-
okay with
if
it, or
it's-
group.
You're right. If it's City of Oglesby sponsored thing, like a thing that we have, like that's a different story. But when you're talking private leagues and stuff like that, and then businesses that don't even reside in Oglesby, I don't think that has any business being on there.
I agree with you.
I don't know, if people are looking at your Facebook page to see, ooh, what kind of activities are going on. I see that there's going to be a
Food truck.
a food truck, yes, I see that there's going, that, you know, maybe there's a bake sale going on, you know, and of course, that bake sale is going to benefit whatever organization, but people may, you know, be intrigued, because there's a bake sale and a food truck, I'm gonna come.
So instead of city events, events that bring people to Oglesby, maybe, is how we'll clarify that. And then we'll have to really think about what we want that to mean, probably, because you can really,
businesses in Oglesby, I don't have a problem with. Organizations in Oglesby that are nonprofit, I don't think are a problem either. When you start getting into private league functions or businesses, or not even, but even nonprofit organizations that don't reside in Oglesby, they're using us to get, well, so the problem with,
I don't wanna advertise
so the problem
for
with, I
them,
don't want to say business,
but I'll
because the
give them
problem.
the events.
Yeah, because the problem is if you give one business, then the other business will be like, hey, how come you're giving them free advertisement, not us? I think if it's a business, I don't want to get involved with that. Unless it's like their grand opening and it's the first time ever,
And that's
maybe
an
that'd
event.
be okay. Yeah, that'd be an event
That's,
or special
I'd
thing.
consider that a city event, or people coming to Oglesby event.
Oh, okay, I see. Oh, you're saying like a sponsored event, even if it's at a business? Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
different story. That's not, because that's not necessarily for the business, that's for the event.
Yeah.
The event just happens to be at that business perhaps or something. That's fine. But free advertisement for businesses, I think we put ourselves in a dangerous situation if you're constantly giving somebody props and then another person says, where's my free advertisement? I have to advertise on the radio or something.
Correct.
And then these other things, these other non-for-profit things that if they're not in Oglesby, I don't understand why we're doing it.
So let's leave it for events that are occurring in Oglesby can be placed there. That we have no comments left on the posts. And then do you have somebody delegated that is that owns that Facebook page then?
Well, I think the people that have admin are, I think it's all, the administrators, I think, are just everybody in the city hall. I'm not sure if all three of them are, is that correct? All three have administrative access. I do not have administrative access anymore, just want to make that clear.
Okay. I've never had it, in case we're worried.
If you'd like it, I think it'd be okay. But, because I still actually think there should be one elected official that probably has some kind of admin access.
And then what about other departments having their own Facebook page, such as the police department has their own Facebook page? Parks does?
I think it'd be the same thing that we'd have to limit, that no comments can be made. It'd be the same thing that they can post information out. It's a one-way information street, just information about events going on or anything like
But
that.
do we need separate accounts like that?
I don't think
Just
there's a
throwing
bad
that out
thing.
there.
I'm just thinking of the police department posts, they're looking for this person on camera, like they're doing a specific job. I'm guessing Parks does pretty much just Parks events, that kind of specific thing. Baseball maybe, or softball, they'll post about, and realistically, they have login to their page, so we don't have to give everyone in the city login to the official page kind of thing, is why I'm thinking that'd probably be a better way of doing it.
I actually didn't even know this. The Parks Department has their own Facebook page? Because Bobby Gigi has access to ours to do things for events, I believe. Yeah, I
We
thought
can
it was.
take it away if you want.
Well, no, I thought it was Oglesby page that the events went on, so I'm not sure about that one.
And why is it duplicative then,
I think it's most of the other municipalities, I think they have them all separated, but again, we don't have to follow everyone else, but I feel like it's
Yeah.
because they specifically do this for this one, this for that one.
The big
And
thing
Oglesby
is.
brings it all kind of together.
The big thing is, I don't want us to get in the business of where we have to start moderating social media and deleting posts that are inappropriate or something like that, or even having to make an archive of them or something. I don't want to have to get I think that's a bad idea to have to get into for any of that stuff.
Alrighty, no posts.
So it'll be no comments on any Oglesby social media page. And then as far as activities, if it's for an Oglesby not-for-profit or any not-for-profit.
I would say Oglesby not-for-profit.
Okay.
Because you start getting, if you could have the argument to say, hey, I have this not-for-profit team that I'm putting together for air
Oglesby-
hockey. Can I get a thing out for that or something?
Oglesby not-for-profit, city-sponsored events, schools, churches. Did we mention something else?
Oglesby schools, Oglesby
okay, okay.
churches.
Events that bring people to Oglesby, I think, too.
Yeah.
Which is,
Well,
that's
you-
a loosely interpreted term.
When you say Oglesby schools, you've got, 3 high schools in the area? St. B, LP, and now, what's the Christian?
LP Christian.
LP Christian.
the
Yeah.
school. You have residents from Oglesby going to those schools.
And they have their own Facebook, they can look at them there. I don't think we need to advertise for
Okay,
LP, St. Bede, LP Christian.
okay.
Well,
What about the,
But if LP's having a baseball game in Oglesby, yeah, we could advertise
But
what
that-
they want,
that's-
that
that's
kind
an
of
That's
thing.
an
Oglesby, yeah.
event in
I-
Oglesby.
IVCC plays their baseball in Oglesby, if I'm not mistaken.
So that brings people to
That's an,
Oglesby.
that's
that
an,
kind of
that's an event happening in Oglesby.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. Things that,
CC has, they're up at the corner, asking for money. The tennis team does that, we've done it for the last couple of years.
they on the
Yeah,
list?
I think
I
or-
you're
don't
right.
think have we approved that?
I didn't remember
Yeah,
that.
we must have approved it if they're up there.
I don't remember
I
that
don't
on the
remember
tag.
that one.
For Tag Day? I don't remember tennis for Tag
Me
Day.
either.
Hmm.
But anyway, we'll have to do some more work on this and go through, so we don't miss anybody. Next one on the agenda is discussion on handling of donations.
Well, we talked about this a while ago, we just haven't had a chance to kind of sit down and go through it. The concern is sometimes there's things that we donate to great causes and stuff like that, and sometimes they're big national things, sometimes they're just local things. I just think it would be a good idea for us to identify how we could do that, either set a limit, or the other idea that we kind of came up with not too long ago was, instead of setting a limit, we could set where that pot of money comes from. And what was, it was, I can't remember, it was one of the pot of monies that has to do with the Fun Fest account. I can't remember.
Entertainment fund.
So that, it's the one that we get donations in from, that we could also sponsor other things for. I thought if we did that,
And pillow tax.
so that way we could be saying it's not funds from taxpayer money. It's things that either was generated from Fun Fest or donations that came in. So I think if we used it from that fund, that'd be one way that we wouldn't have to necessarily set a limit.
And so for
because-
that fund, it's as long as we bring people to Oglesby, it's okay to spend out of that fund, I believe. So if there's an event in Oglesby, I think we'd be okay with it. I don't know if we could spend that fund outside of Oglesby, but
So that brings up the other topic. Do you want a subcategory? What do you want a subcategory into stuff like that? Because you're right. So like an event.
I
that
kind of
we're-
like it the same as the posting on social media policy. Pretty much all those same four things we talked about would probably be.
But what
I would
about
do.
like when we give $500 to a cancer thing? You know what I mean? That's not an event that's so, I mean, where does that, you know what I mean? So that's not something that's the same as the pill tax fund. I mean, it's a great thing to donate money to, but it's not necessarily the same thing as bringing things in for an event or hosting something or sponsoring something. It's something very different. So what I'm saying is I don't think the taxpayers would be happy if we were to use taxpayer money to, I don't know, donate to 500 different cancer relief fund, things like that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's taxpayer money. But I'm saying we could either subdivide it into different categories, or we could just say all of that comes out of either, like, for example, the pill tax fund for the certain events, or it comes out of our, one of our Fun Fest funds.
I guess I would draw a distinction that the pillow tax is municipal money because it's raised, by a tax in the municipality. Fun Fest is something that, the community sponsors and, it hopefully makes money every year, and certainly, I think making donations from that is, there's not a problem. I don't know whether your annual donations would exceed the amount of money in the Fun Fest fund. I don't know if it does or does not.
It wouldn't come close.
Or
It
would-
wouldn't come close.
Oh, okay, well then, I would probably recommend that you make it from there, because I think at least an argument can be made that those are not public funds. The way you get money in for tax dollars, or sales tax, or state income tax, your big revenue sources are your utility tax, obviously, the electrical department, your proceeds from your proprietary funds, your surplus, I should say, from your proprietary funds, your state income tax, your state sales tax, and your tax levy money. But I mean, all those things are, become municipal funds, and I know every municipality does this, but I don't know there's any provision in the municipal code that, allows for donations, no matter how justifiable the cause may be, of municipal funds. But if you're earmarking the Fun Fest money, I think that's, a way
To handle it.
to handle it, provided, like I said, that there's enough profit from the Fun Fest, that, to cover all your donations. And if there is, then that's how I would recommend that you handle it.
Right.
Because I think you can make a lot stronger argument that that's not, I suppose you could argue it both ways, but I could at least argue that's not public money in the same way that your state income tax, your sales tax, your real estate taxes, those other things.
Well, I like it for that reason as well, but then the other reason I like it for is, it tells other businesses that's bringing in money for us, that's not just for Fun Fest, that's also money that we can send out on their behalf to other great things that we donate to.
We usually pay for all our events out of Fun Fest too, so COVID kind of
we
had
do.
screwed that up, but that's usually
Yeah.
where all that money
Yeah.
comes to too, so you can
Yeah.
tell the people that's where that's coming from.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good way to handle it from now on, so that way we don't get in the situation where people saying, why are you donating to this cause? Because that's money I gave the city for whatever reason. So I think that would take that out of that equation.
Let's go to number 17 then. Discussion on receiving donation for city parks. It's my understanding that, that we can receive donation for city parks. It's kept in a separate account.
We're talking like somebody wants to put a tree up for one of their loved ones that passed away and they donate, that kind of thing, or?
At the last park board meeting we had, it was brought up that Bobby said he had gotten some requests from people about the trees that were damaged at Holy Family, Park. And they had asked about, about donating, money or a tree for something like that. And he said he'd look into it. And also, they were talking about, a lot of the trees have diseases in them now, and they're old, and they're not gonna be around for many more years. And also talked about planting trees as a memorial for somebody, and, but he said that they were gonna try to open their own little account to keep it separate from the city. And just, something to look at, to move ahead and try to get people, that wanna donate trees or money, or, and it was gonna be called like a walk in the park or something. That was what they were gonna give the little group a name, but not have it associated with the city, just as a, a donation.
Fundraising
Yeah,
for the parks and
basically, yeah.
trees.
Who would manage this fund?
I think Bobby was talking to Mrs. Lytle, and I think they were gonna talk about getting the account. I don't know who would be in charge of it, if it was Mike Bema or
We could,
one of the other
the
guys.
park board could be in charge of it,
Yeah,
because realistically, if they're taking donations, they're probably gonna wait until they can buy 5 to 10 trees, and then you can
Right,
report
right,
park
right.
board meeting to approve it.
right.
Because I don't think we're getting into too much.
No, but he said he had a lot of people coming up to him wanting to make donations or wanting to buy a tree, and they were kinda concerned because a lot of the trees over there at Memorial Park are dead or gonna be dead in the next couple of years.
Do you know what we did with the pool when we called Stop? Save the Oglesby pool? Did we make a special fund for that or something that allowed for that?
Private. I think those were citizens, weren't they?
That was
They were.
citizens.
Those are private citizens. And, you can do this. I guess I would just suggest that they form it much the same way that the ambulance service has their volunteer group that holds their pork chop festival, right?
Correct.
they keep that money separate from, from the city money. And I think they do it as is it Friends of the, what is it, the Oglesby, they've got an actual name for it.
They do have a name,
And
and
They've got, it's all set up and registered, you just can't,
Yeah, I think
and
you
there's a lot of things that you have to, comply with. You just
Well-
can't say, I'm gonna set up the fund.
Well, I don't think they're going to the 501c non-for-profit level. I think that we're talking a couple thousand, maybe, I'm guessing, to plant some
Yeah,
trees. It's
I-
nothing,
I guess you want to make sure that it's.
as long as it's under the city umbrella, we shouldn't
Yeah.
have to get non-for-profit status.
Correct, I think, well, my first comment would be, like, the fire department also has the same thing, I think. Don't they have, they don't have okay, well, I know in Peru, you'll every now and then you'll get a letter from like Liberty Fire Company #1 for seeking donations. That's not the city of Peru, that's people who, maybe members of the volunteer fire department. And those funds can be raised and they can be used, for any purpose. But they're not under the control of the municipality, and it's clear that the entity that's raising the funds, that it's not going into the municipal coffers, much like the people who support the ambulance service are doing fundraising things for the ambulance service. I think they can do fundraising for the parks. I just think there needs to be something set up that makes it clear that it's not the city of,
Right,
Friends of the Oglesby Parks, or,
Right.
whatever, however you want to call that.
Don't think they wanted to affiliate it. They said they couldn't affiliate it with the city of Oglesby. They were gonna try to,
Friends of the Parks or something.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're a 501c at then. So that's-
Yeah, well,
They'd have to get
they're not gonna be able
non-for-profit
get through a
status.
five, but just, people would also have to understand, if they give that to them, that doesn't necessarily mean they get a tax deduction.
Well, it's
Because
pretty,
you'd have-
tax deductions now for 501,
You'd
you have to
get
give a lot of money
501c3
before it's worth it
to get
anyway,
yeah.
so.
And that's a significant, there can be a significant amount of accounting work
Yeah.
to qualify for that. But I just think that however it's set up, you got to make it clear that it's separate
from the city. yeah.
the city.
Right, there is a set of bylaws and rules that you have to go through to set this up.
Well, I think it depends on how complicated, I mean, I'm assuming many places are maybe setting up their own, not-for-profit LLCs. I don't know if you have to go through that. I think you probably should have some written bylaws, I don't know, for lack of a better word, but something that says this is what we're gonna use these funds for. But not that they can't do
I
it,
said
but you
that
wanna keep
they
it
just-
separate from the
They
city
just
money.
opened it up the last meeting we had about a week ago, and they were looking into it, and,
Yeah, I would, Jim, where I would point them to is I would have them call whoever is in charge of like that Liberty Fire Company,
Yeah.
number one thing improve, because it's something similar to that. It's set up to help a specific
cause.
municipal department, but not to be going to the, to the municipality.
Right.
I'd see just how
Yeah,
did they set their thing up.
They didn't wanna tie it into the city,
I understand. I'd check with them as stuff. I'd suggest that Bobby check with them to see how they set that up. Because it'd be the same, same type of thing.
Said he has a lot of people that are interested in it, and, said, the trees are, like he said, he's gonna lose a lot more down there, and I think some at Lehigh Park, they just put a bunch of them in down at Lehigh Park, but he said there's still more that are probably gonna be gone in the next, 3-4 years, he said they're probably gone.
The city in the last year, I think we spent $5,000 in planting new trees at Lehigh Park. If there's no further discussion on that, we'll go to number 18, discussion of burning of yard waste, burning of trash, and burn bans.
I did distribute a little handout for the number of complaints that the police department did receive on burning. There are about 24 of them starting back in February and through the 18th of this month. So of the complaints, the majority of them were just a general complaint about the smoke.
That was during the burn ban though, right? From March 31st to the 6th, didn't we have a burn ban in the city of Oglesby?
They did.
So that's why we'd probably get way more than a majority of those complaints.
We did.
Okay.
And then we lifted that, and we still did get a few in August and into September. I have had a few calls about the burning. One person says, you know, if they could just not burn at night. And I'm personally, let's just not burn then if you're not going to burn at night or.
So yeah, we looked at this, there's a couple things I wasn't aware of. Obviously, it says you can't have trash and stuff like that, but actually, you're only allowed to burn yard waste from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m., and oddly enough, from March 15th through December 31st. I don't know why 2.5 months out of the year you can't do it, but I thought that was a little odd there. So yeah, if people are saying they're burning at night, the only thing you're allowed to burn at night would be your recreational fires, because there's really no writing about recreational fires except that you can't do it on Mondays. That's the only thing.
That's laundry day.
Yep.
When the ordinance was written, that's why
That's
they wrote
right.
it that way.
That
to
is
tell you
the,
the
that
truth.
is the story.
And they hung them outside,
Yeah.
sure. I personally, the little fire pits that people have in their backyard, they have their chairs around, and they have some wood in there on an evening, and sitting around the fire. I have no issue with those. It's burning of materials, house materials, decking.
So
That's
this
huge.
incident for 918, I was expecting them to give, isn't there a ticket for that, Jim? Or what would they give out for an ordinance violation kind of thing?
Do we have a burning ordinance?
Yeah, you can't burn garbage
Okay. Well,
or
then,
treated
yeah,
lumber,
they-
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they would get a ticket for that.
What about burn barrels and the 20-foot?
That's trash.
It's trash.
That's enforceable too, according to the ordinance.
I'm sorry, Drew, you said burn barrels, and what was the second thing?
And anything else, like you were talking about recreational, I had that call on my neighbors last year or the year before. They were sitting in the garage all drinking and stuff, and they had a recreational fire outside. It's like, why? And that smoke, like I said, the majority of the time it goes from west to east. So I can't even have my windows open, because of this. And, why can't you just go like LaSalle? LaSalle's a burn ban, and they're twice the size.
They are twice the size of us
I do
too.
believe LaSalle allows fire pits.
Pardon me?
We're giving him the right to comment when he shouldn't be, but.
Yeah.
LaSalle does have the fire pits are permissible, but it's the other burning, the leaves and all that they don't burn.
Well, so I did want to talk about yard waste in some regards. I'm going to make this mention in my comments, though, but, if you're burning leaves, I'm not sure why you're necessarily doing that. We pick up leaves for more than a month. I guess there's other yard waste things, but if you're just burning leaves, you really should have no need for that. And obviously, garbage is not allowed. If you're burning garbage, well, you're in violation already, and you're causing more problems, and you shouldn't be doing that. Yeah,
So maybe stricter enforcement is what we're looking at?
stricter enforcement, I suppose, of no yard waste. Even if you can burn and you're perfectly legal to do so, I don't know what else we can do besides making it a complete burn ban across the city, which I don't think that's the answer. If it's windy outside and you're not respecting your neighbors and you're burning it and you're allowing people to not get their fresh air, I think that's wrong. You got to be kind, you got to be friendly. But as you said, how do you, if you don't make an enforcement of kindness and friendliness and common sense, it won't happen.
Right.
I don't know what else you can do. Put a 5-mile-an-hour limit on that, so a cop has to show up with a wind vane, give them a ticket for burning in a 6-mile-an-hour zone or something like that.
I don't know about that. The majority of burn pits or fire pits. I mean, what I have is gas, so nobody is being offended by that, but I don't see the smoke so much from those, and maybe from the ones I've been around. I could be totally wrong on some others. It's the burning of house materials. As you said, we have leaf pickups. Our garbage cans are tremendously huge. If you can't put all your garbage in those cans, I'm just saying there's no reason to be burning garbage. And if you have construction material that you're burning, I hope to heck that you have a dumpster outside too to be getting rid of all of those things. We should not be using those, that to be burning. And I would like to see it be stiffer. If there are people who are in the burn barrel and they're burning their garbage, or people who are, burning whatever, that there should be a citation issued.
I would agree. I think stricter enforcement of the things that obviously you can't do. And then the thing, even though you can do something, please ask yourself, are you being kind to your neighbor? I don't know another way to say it without, because if the answer is no and people don't want to do that, the only other option we would have would be doing a citywide burn ban. And I just don't think we're there yet. I don't want to deny people the opportunity if they feel they have a need to do that.
Public comments.
We do have a burn ordinance, that's true. But like I said, all the times that I've come and asked, and if somebody's got a burn barrel on their property, what do you think it's there for? You think it's a decoration? Like I said, I could take you all over town, and I could show you each and every one.
Is the mic not on?
There should be a switch on it,
Just
on the
ta-
black part.
I thought it was on. Tap it.
Hello?
Is it on?
Tap it, it should,
Hello?
It's on.
it's on.
Yeah, so like I said, if you want to go for a drive sometime, but like I said, I brought this up to the chief before, and, it doesn't go anywhere. And it's 20 feet. So you shouldn't even be allowed to have a burn barrel on your property that's closer than 20 feet. And we had a lot of people in our neighborhood when it's time to end the garden, and I'm trying to watch football on Sunday, and I got to shut all my windows. I have a right to free air. Wherever I want to breathe, I want to breathe. And it's because some idiot wants to burn off his garden when he could put it in a bag and they'll take it. I ain't never seen them refuse one unless they don't have a sticker on it. That's the only time I've seen them refuse it. But it's 2020. Other cities have a burn ban. Why not us? Don't we have the right to free air? And I got one more comment. Are we still taking applications for a police chief? And if we are, why?
The answer is no.
Well, Greg Science, Oglesby, I wrote down a few things. And the first one that we came across tonight was the food truck. I really don't think you can restrict food trucks from selling pizzas or tacos just because other people in town sell that stuff. The $350, I don't think that that trailer that was parked out there across from Casey's pulled in enough revenues to buy the product, staff the trailer, and pay $350 and make a profit after paying the city $350 to be there. But that's my opinion. And if Seneca Square was operating and somebody wanted to put a food truck in that vicinity, maybe the $350 with things happening at Seneca Square would be a draw at that point in time to $350 outlay just to be there. The generator issue, there's an outlet right here. I'm knowledgeable of multiple trades, and I understand why you want the public to, and you want the public to be acting right with generators. possibly powering up the power lines out in the street. But any construction generator could be plugged into that outlet and power up this whole building. And you would have to go around shutting lights off because the generator would pop its own fuse if it was drawing too much power trying to run all these lights. But it would sneak out through the meter and try to feed the entire neighborhood too. Just let you know that anybody that's trying to use a generator to generate power during an outage ought to be smart enough to know that they can't power up the whole neighborhood. And they'd have to flip their switch, their main, in their house so it can't leave. But I understand your issues. Did you want to say something, Jason?
I was just gonna say, the idea is that somebody would have bought a whole home generator and
And
did,
if somebody bought a whole home generator, they are totally aware, if they're spending $3,000 to install a home generator, it comes with a flip switch automatically to disconnect from the city. Any dumb butt who might leave the wrapper on a pizza and put it in the oven.
Well, that's
one of
the-
those kind of people.
I-
Hey, I've done that.
that's the problem. Not everybody, you're right. If you have it installed right, there's a safety switch on there that prevents that. But sometimes people don't pay for a group to come in to do that, and they might do it themselves, and they do a budget version of it, and they don't put that safety feature in there. Therefore, when the power goes out, there's a backfeed onto the circuit out there. That's
I
the
agree.
concern we're having.
I totally agree with you that that can happen. And you'd be an idiot trying to power up the whole neighborhood with your own generator. Okay, I understand your no posting in Facebook. I get it, but that's a loss of functionality for people, us regular people, not the higher end of you guys. And and as far as park donations, one thing you didn't really address, and it came up with people making donations to Peru because they want a pool again, and then those donations kind of went to the splash pad, and it kind of made them angry. So you might want to consider when you're writing up these rules of if somebody wants to have a tree donated, and they want it in a particular park, and if the money doesn't go there, you step on people's toes that their money didn't go where they wanted. And as far as the burn ban, I really like to see you keep recreational fires. And as far as wood is wood, tree, split cord wood, or maybe restrict plywoods. That's a dangerous wood.
That'd be
so-
treated lumber.
and
Yes.
Yes.
definitely I've seen people throw siding into burn barrels to get rid of it too. That's horrible. Burned in plastic is just horrible. That's all.
Thank you. Greg, I'm gonna make a comment. People, and I've seen there's been accidents where somebody has plugged in a home generator and didn't have a double throw switch. And we've had a couple accidents. I had a good friend of mine get burned like that.
Okay.
So I think we really need to have any generator, anybody that has these generators, that they have to be inspected by the electrical inspector.
Well, I'm just making the point that anybody could plug any generator into that wall outlet and,
I understand.
okay.
The other thing is that if people they don't wanna make donations for the Parks Department, that can be held in a separate account. Commissioner reports.
I have nothing to report tonight.
I had a couple of people reach out to me regarding the microphones. They said that they still cannot hear everything when they're listening to the live stream. And the request was to make sure that when you are speaking about anything, that you try to get your mic closer to you and not back here, that you're actually speaking into the microphone. So just a suggestion, people. And there was another person who reached out to me this week regarding flags being at half-staff and Oglesby not honoring that. So I know we have at least one here, one at the police station, one at the fire ambulance station. I don't know if there's one person who is notifying that the people who are at City Hall, fire, or our police department. I don't know if there's anybody who's out there saying, hey, we need to do half-staff today because Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. Or it's 9/11 Patriots Day, or those types of things. So, my question is, who should that person be to assure that we're doing that consistently?
So Rich? Either that or Parks, I would think. So yeah, we'll look into that.
Yeah, it would be nice, because I'm sure
Is
City
it-
Hall doesn't
Where do
always
we find that
know.
out at? Just a random question.
Yeah,
I
I
have
don't
no
know.
idea where
I
I
use
go.
I use an app for my house that it shows it. I don't do the state governor ones. I do the national ones if the
Oh.
president or whatever does it. But you can get it. to where you
Notify
can-
us from now on, Jason.
I'll just put, there's an app. There's an
right,
app that'll
perfect.
tell you if you want to do all the state ones or the state and the federal ones. I will look into that app and I will let you know what the app is.
I have nothing more.
Yes, a couple things. Street Department, as I stated before, Leaf Vac will start 19th October and will run till the 20th of November. So please, pretty please, if you have leaves that are starting to fall, please do not burn them. We will be coming around. We will be picking them up for over a month. Electric, there was an outage on Saturday night. What happened was there was a line that snapped between 2nd and 3rd in an alley. Now, people were probably wondering why it had such a large area. As I said before, when we did get the city back up in such a short time, that's because there's a lot of things that we have in the city that's built in for redundancy. That way there's a problem if a line snaps somewhere or something goes down, you can get power from an alternate source and stuff like that. But the problem was there wasn't a way to isolate that section where the damage was, because there's still so much redundancy that we still got to get back. We have at least 6-9 months worth of work to really get back to the same level of confidence we want to have the system at. So that's because they had to take that entire circuit down. So that's why it was down for about an hour and 30 minutes or so. Water department. All right, water tower, finally. The pressure tank arrived today. So pressure washing is going to start on the tower this week, and hopefully by the end of this week or next week, the painting will begin, and we will have a nice, beautiful water tower with a nice cursive Oglesby lettering. And that's all I have.
I've got nothing.
I just got a couple of things. It's Halloween, and this will be in your Oglesby bills. Due to the ongoing pandemic, we will not be having Fun Fest. Instead, we will be having a drive-through trick-or-treat on October 31st from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. There will be multiple organizations passing out different Halloween trees. The locations for this event is downtown Oglesby. As more organizations get involved, we will post the information on Oglesby Facebook page as well as the city website. On the October 5th meeting, we'll spell out the guidelines and et cetera for trick or treating. I did have one thing I'm gonna mention is that, I guess it's maybe because of the election season, yard signs. That is free speech signs. Did I shut it off? I'm sorry.
Good to go now.
I've got a complaint today that a neighbor had posted a yard sign 18 inches inside his property line. The neighbor complained that that's free speech. It's in his yard. We can't do anything about it. With that, I have on the agenda is to go into closed session. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a Pacific employee or legal counsel for the public body. Also, collective negotiations matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberation concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. ILCS 120/2, parentheses C, parentheses 1. The setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body. LCS I 120/2, parentheses C, parentheses 6.
I will make that motion.
Second. Aye.
Cullen. Curran.
Aye.
Miyake.
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye. Would I do shut it off?
Oh, yeah, shut it off.
That's okay.
Got some more items I thought we would. Got some more items I thought we would. Jim, I'll talk to Andreoni about, let me tell you that meeting together about that property. Maybe you're gonna lock up? No police here tonight. We'll lock up. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Greg.
Spring Valley. I was coming home one night from work, and I was on, you know, always, people always say, well, you gotta have an impact, you know, to get hurt. I stopped at the stop sign at Shooting Park and Meridian Road, you know, where yeah, Delzo. So I was at a complete stop. Car came up behind me, complete stop. We're both dead stop. I started to pull out to turn left to go towards St. Bede and go home Spring Valley. And there was, I saw some, it looked like car lights coming over the hill. So I started to pull out, and I didn't go any further. I didn't go as far as me to you. And I stopped. And
I make a motion to go back into regular session.
Second. Oh, give it to Jason.
Arkwright,
Aye.
Cullen, Curran,
Aye.
Mieski,
Aye.
Rivera.
Need a motion and second to adjourn?
I'll
motion
make a
to adjourn.
Second.
Arkwright,
Aye.
Cullen, Curran.
Aye.
Mieski,
Aye.
Rivera.
so she,
I just broke my mask, so now we're definitely done.
Probably would've got the front of my truck.
then you would have.
But see, look, the intersection, here's the intersection here, okay? I'm about, here's the middle of the intersection, north and south. I'm about out